Hi everyone, welcome to another Learn Grow Invest meeting. Thank you for joining us. If it's your first time, welcome. This is gonna be a very information-packed meeting. We have a great lineup here for you today, and we just want you to sit back and enjoy, take notes. Before you do that though, we want you to share this video with as many persons as you can. Share it with friends, with family, with aunts, uncles, everybody. We are going to be joined by Miss Jillian Jackson. But before we welcome her, a good friend of mine, Kemil, is going to open up in a word of prayer. So Kemil, over to you.
Thank you, Jermaine. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for today, a day we've never seen before, a day filled with possibilities, opportunities, mercy, your grace. Lord, as we gather here, we just want to thank you for fellowship as well. I want to thank you for your love. You love us so much that you created us and you also bought us. So you own us twice. That is love. So Lord, we just want to thank you for the great investor that you are, that you would see value in us to the point that you buy us, you redeemed us, and you will not sell us again, Lord. So we thank you for the freedom that we have in you. We ask that you will bless our presenter this evening. We ask that you will bless our minds, help our minds to be fertile ground for the words that will come forth. We ask that communication will be easy, that communication will come forth, with clarity, and that they will be understanding. So we just invite your presence here among us, and we thank you for the freedom that we have in you. So we just ask you, great liberator, to just set the tone for this meeting, have your own way, and let everything be said to the glory and to the honor of your matchless name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you for that, Kemil. I'll see you a little later. All right, so I have the pleasure now to introduce Miss Jillian Jackson. So Jillian is a financial blogger who has over 15 years experience of working in Jamaica's financial sector. Jillian has a bachelor's and master's of science in actuarial science with a minor in finance for the latter. She is currently pursuing a micromaster's in data science from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Jillian's academic and professional experience in understanding financial instruments with special emphasis on data analytics drives her passion for explaining complex ideas. And that's how we know Jillian. She breaks down the complex things for us and says it in simple language. She's a former Fulbright scholar. She's also the VP of the U.S. Exchanges Alumni Association, an organization that comprises of persons who have benefited from the various programs that are offered through the U.S. Embassy. She has a goal of playing a very integral part, as we've seen so far, in improving Jamaica's financial literacy. That inspired her to start her own blog called financialsensibility.com. We recommend that you go there immediately after this video, where she raises awareness on the lesser known aspects of common financial decisions, such as purchasing a home, applying for an auto loan, the benefits of having a pension plan, among many, many other things. She's a mom of two brilliant boys who love maths, no surprise there. Their ages are 3 and 5 years old. Jillian is also an exercise enthusiast, and she still is trying to calculate the formula for balancing health, work, and managing family while volunteering and relaxing. So guys, I wanted to help me welcome Jillian Jackson. I hope I did her intro justice.
That was great.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, probably too much, so it's okay. All right, thank you for that warm welcome, Jermaine. I appreciate it. And hi, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I don't know where you're tuning in from, to all the persons that have joined us today. I'm hoping at the end of the discussion, I'll be able to impart even one tidbit of knowledge. If you're here, you might be new to saving and investing, or you might be a seasoned investor. Hopefully you'll get even one snippet, if you're the latter, from my presentation this evening. And I welcome your feedback on it. All right, so my first question, I hope everyone can see my screen. and I want you guys to answer in the chat and let me know. My first question to you guys is, what do you think financial freedom means? What does it mean to you? If you say that you have financial freedom, what does that specifically mean? Can anyone volunteer to give me an answer on what that means? And why it's important? Thank you for that. All right, I think people are still getting warmed up to the presentation. So while they're getting warmed up, I'll tell you what I think it means, and I'll still welcome your feedback on it. So financial freedom means having the ability or capacity for your finances to be in, for you to be in control of your finances and not the other way around. Thank you, TK. The ability to do what I want because I have the finances to do so. So whether it's you're sitting on a beach in which remote island and you don't have to worry about going to work every day, so you're getting an income from doing what you love, or if you are just able to have some room, some wiggle room in your income to be able to meet your needs and have a little extra to save and invest. So financial freedom gives you the opportunity to, as we would like to say, live your best life. So you want to be able to have something in a little, right, you can choose what you want to do with your time. You're not on anyone else's time. If you have financial freedom, you can be on your time and do what you want in the time that you want to do it in, right? So it's important for us to be able to be in control of our finances because time is money. So the more you're earning or the more room you have in your finances to be able to earn, you will have more control of your time and being able to use your time to do what you want to do and to do what you love. So it's very important for us to think through financial freedom, and I'm hoping I'll be here to guide you through some of those steps. All right, another quiz time again. So I want you to tell me, if you had to think through the next 5 years, what are some of the goals that you have for the next 5 years? And there is a link. I don't know if I put it here, if you guys will be able to see it. I did a poll, so you can, hopefully you can see that link. You can click on it and you can actually answer in my poll and I'll see the results come up. So what are some of the goals that you have for the future? And I had some options there. It's I think it was buy a house, buy a car, get your education, I see debt repayment. Yeah, those are all really, really great. Those are all different goals that persons generally have for the next 5 years, whether or not you want to start a family or buy a house, buy a car. I'm looking at the poll results to see what people are saying. Save and invest more, that seems to be the popular one. Buy a house, continue your education, or start a family. So different people have different goals for the next couple of years. And in thinking about your goals, what plans have you put in place to be able to achieve those goals? Have you started putting a plan in place? Have you started a savings account? Have you started, I'm assuming most of your plans will cost money. So most persons will say that they would want to buy a house, a car, invest more. So all of your plans involve some level of financial commitment, if you think about it. Any plan at all you have, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a financial plan. If you want to start a family, you have to still think about the finances associated with it. So when you think about goals, if it's going back to school, things that are big in your life, even if it's getting a new job, you have to kind of probably invest in your education or invest in upskilling to be able to achieve that. So anything that you want to achieve comes with a cost. And are you thinking through what that cost is, what you have to put away now to be able to generate that income or that revenue to be able to achieve your goals in the future? So that's what I want to start thinking about and wrapping our heads around. Right, invest in income producing property, I'm seeing. All right, and you're not seeing the link. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. I think I posted it. All right. Well, if you're not seeing it, I'll just look in the chat at your answers. So yeah, debt repayment, emergency fund bills. I'll touch on that a little bit. Invest in income producing properties. So everyone has some kind of goal that would require us getting some money in our accounts and for that money to grow. So how are we gonna do that? And I'll get to that in a second. But this question is probably too basic for most of you. But another pop quiz. So what's the answer to this question? If the interest rate on your savings is 1% a year and inflation is 2% a year, after 1 year, would the money in your account buy more than it does today, exactly the same, or less than today? And you can tell me your answers in the chat as well. So if you have an interest rate of 1% of your savings and inflation is 2% a year, after 1 year, would the money in your account buy more than it does today, exactly the same, or less than it does today? All right, everybody in here seems to be super bright because I'm just seeing correct answers. And it's probably a no-brainer for you guys that it's less. So if inflation is not 2% a year, on average it's about 4% a year. And your interest on your savings account is not 1% a year. It's probably like 0.1% a year. So yes, I know you guys are very bright. You guys are very bright. That's very true. You guys are brilliant. So this is probably too basic for you. But just in case anybody comes across this video and it's not, I'm glad that they'll understand about inflation, if nothing else. So, right, the current interest rates on savings accounts are less than 1% a year, and inflation is on average about 4% a year. It might be even higher than that with COVID and stuff. So, yeah, you're going to end up getting less if you put all of your money, all of your eggs in one basket, all of your money in a savings account. Yes, you should keep some there, but if you put all of it there and expect that's what's going to take you through the rest of your life, you have to think through the fact that inflation is going to eat out that money faster than it's going to get interest. And so you won't be able to buy the same things that you used to be able to buy. You won't be able to sustain your lifestyle, right? Thanks for that, Chike. Chike saying that inflation is at 5% currently. So yeah, if you think through that fact, it should open your eyes to the fact that you need to think about strategies in a different way, investment strategies, and how to grow your money at a rate higher than inflation. All right, so everybody was right. So now I'm going to take you through the road to financial freedom. And this is my literal road. All right, so along the journey of the road to financial freedom, I've come up with 5 different stopping points or 5 different steps to help you to get to that goal, to help you to get to the journey of financial freedom, the end point. And those 5 steps include 1, tackling your debt, 2, establishing a budget, 3, saving more, 4, getting serious about investing, and 5, boosting your financial knowledge. So I want you to walk with me along this journey on getting to financial freedom using these 5 steps, and I'll go into each of those steps and give you some tips on what to think through when you're doing each of those steps on this journey. Number 1, tackling your debt, and you really have to tackle it like this guy is doing. So if you have a high level of debt, before I go there, this came up very recently in our chat group too, that Jamaican households are servicing 3 times more debt than a decade ago. So in 2019, the average debt service ratio is 57% of income, up from 17% in 2009. And that really emphasizes the fact that, well, maybe our financial markets are getting more comfortable lending, and they've had to because of the fact that they're not getting as much interest income from government paper anymore. So they're forced to, not forced, but they have to re-strategize to be able to get more interest income off of consumer loans like auto loans, unsecured loans, and credit cards. their revenue has been pushed to those type of products instead of just investing in government paper and getting enough return on those to not necessarily have to push their loan portfolio. So consequently, the average debt of each of Jamaicans has risen from the 17% to the 57%. And I'll tell you why that figure of 57% is so important, because typically lenders, there are different thresholds for different products, but if your debt service ratio is in excess of about 50 or 60%, and that's still high, if it is in excess of that, 40, 50%, 60 if they're really a nice institution, then you won't be able to borrow from them at all. You will not be able to exceed your debt service ratio in a percentage over 50% in general. So the fact that the average debt service ratio, so that means most people's debt service ratio is hovering around that figure, is 57%. It means that those people are at their max capacity. They cannot borrow anymore. So they've maxed out all of their capacity to borrow. And that's on average. And that's really alarming to me. I mean, it might be a good thing for persons to be able to use the money and, grow their business or whatever it is they're using for buying a car, finance their education, etc. It's a good thing for them. But in terms of being able to manage that level of debt, you're not going to have financial freedom if you have that much debt. And it's not going to allow you to be able to be financially free. Claudette, I see your question. What's considered an acceptable debt service ratio? The 50-60% is okay. You can, if you can manage that. I mean, if you're spending half of your income repaying other people, there might be a better way to maneuver that to be able to have more disposable income to do other things. But if you're at 80%, 90%, you're in problems, because that means your 10% of your income is what you have to live off of if you're meeting your debt service obligation. So yes, DSR is debt service ratio. So if you are at such a high level of debt, as I said, you will not be able to get that financial freedom that will allow you to have that lifestyle that you want to live comfortably off of. So how are we going to tackle that? The first way I would say is to do an assessment of all of your debts and interest rates. Right. So some banks look for certain ranges and you should come and ask for a loan. That's a good point. So assess all your debts and their interest rates. So what type of debt do you hold? So you have to really take stock of your financial position, and I'll get into how you can do that in a little bit. But when you look at your income and you look at all of your expenses and you calculate what percent is going to debt, really take a good assessment, including your credit card debt, and look at all of the debts and probably put them on a spreadsheet saying this is debt 1, debt 2, if you have student loans, credit card debt, mortgage, car loan, etc. Some people will tell you that you shouldn't take out any debt for things that are not generating an income for you. I think that's a bit of a strict position, and persons have needs in life. I took out my first loan when I was 19, I think, or younger, to be able to pay for school and to be able to buy a car to go to school. So I kind of did the math over and over again, and I think my debt service ratio was probably very high because I wasn't earning a lot back then. But I made it work and I made the sacrifice and stuff. So it's not a one size fits all, but it's important that you repay your debt obligations and repay them on time. I'll tell you why in a little bit. So yeah, growing your income or growing your business rather with debt is another thing that is. To me, that's fine. If you can definitely show that your income, your business is sustainable to be able to meet your debt obligations. But yeah, number one, take an assessment and look at all of the interest rates that you're paying. Some people just get a credit card, and they don't have a clue what the interest rate is. They just get a card, they say they want a credit card, they use it, so they spend it off, they see a payment, a bill come every month, they pay the minimum balance, and then that's it for them. They have no clue what the interest rate is. So I encourage you to take a look at what your interest rate is. So, let me do a quick quiz now. What do you think is the lowest interest rate for credit cards in the Jamaican market? Anybody at all? What's the lowest interest rate you think financial institutions who offer credit cards are offering right now? My camera is giving a little trouble, but I'm here. It will come back in a second. it will come back in one. What's the lowest interest rate you think financial institutions are offering for credit cards? Oh, there we go. You're right. I think Don Raul has the right answer. Don Raul has the right answer. No, Richard, that's high. Camille, you're close. Shawnette, you're also close. So it's 34%. That's the lowest interest rate right now that I'm aware of. Yeah, Chika, you're close to 34%. So imagine you went to take a mortgage and you're going to pay 34% interest on that mortgage. The APR is a little bit different. It's probably 35 when you calculate the APR, which is a different calculation, but it gives the same basis of comparison. I won't get into the complication of it. But 34%, if you're paying I think my parents were probably paying a mortgage at 34%, and it was no joke. That's in the FinSac era back in those days. So if your credit card debt is 34%, that's the lowest. The highest is up in the 50s or probably touching mid 50s, right? So if you assess your debt, you would probably realize that your credit card is the highest debt you're repaying if you don't pay your credit card in full every month. So your credit card, it should be the first thing that you're looking at in a serious way to say, okay, this is if that's a part of your debt portfolio, that's the first one that you need to say, okay, how can I manage this credit card debt and make it more manageable? How can I change this credit card debt and make it more manageable? I'm not a licensed financial advisor. I cannot give you financial advice, but I'll tell you to go and speak with a loans officer or a rep in your bank or financial institution to help guide you on how you can consolidate your debt and refinance your high interest debt. Because you know how interest works, just like how you get interest on your money when you put it in the bank versus putting it in an investment, and the interest that you get is higher. The same way that works. The higher interest ones the higher savings are better for you. The higher debt is terrible for you. So the rate that you pay on your debts, especially your credit cards and those high ones, they are rates that you probably want to think about restructuring if it is that debt burden is carrying with you every month and you can't seem to be able to pay it off. And there's an example that I have an article on my site about debt refinancing. But the example, what did I do with it? It showed that if you had the same loan, the same exact loan, let me bring it up. If you had a outstanding debt amount of 200,000, for example, 200,000, and the minimum payment is $6,000 and your interest rate is 40%. So assuming that if you only make that minimum payment, that's $6,000, and you don't make any other purchases on the card, so you stop using the card, but you still have that debt, the $200,000, and you're making the minimum payment of $6,000 every month, it will take you 8.75 years to pay off the $200,000. If you had a loan now, an unsecured loan at for the same amount, $200,000, say it's 10% as the interest rate. The rates are probably a little higher than that, but for this example, say that the interest rate is 10%. It would take you 3 years versus 8 years to pay off the same debt, paying the same amount. The same amount, you're paying the same amount every month, but it will take you 3 years for one and 8.75 years for the other. So the high interest rate, it really saves your time because, that's 5 years. So 5 years of your time is going towards paying a debt that you could have paid off in 3 if the interest rate was not so high, right? So you have to really do that calculation, look at what the interest rate is on your credit cards or other high interest loans. If the interest rate is 20-30%, you need to look at refinancing that loan so that you can have more wiggle room in your income. And that don't mean that that's money that you're going to spend and waste now. That's money that you need to put into savings if you were not living hand to mouth before. So yeah, in credit cards, they are very attractive for you and they can be very beneficial. I have credit cards. I'm not saying don't get a credit card. Definitely not. I have them, I use them, and I pay back my balance in full every month so that I'm not paying the bank any interest. I'm not about giving them any interest or any interest income from my credit card. So I know not everybody can do that. Not trying to say that that's your thing, but pay off as much as you can, because anything you don't pay, they're charging you interest on the full balance, right? If you don't pay any of your credit card bill, they're charging you interest on the full thing that you spent on your credit card. So invest or save whatever you have left over when you refinance your debt, and pay the highest ones off first, even if it's a credit card. If your credit card interest rate is 50% and you're not managing with it, and you said, boy, you're looking in the market for a lower interest rate credit card, especially if you're not paying the bill back on time each month, that's another thing you can do. But refinancing it to an unsecured loan or refinancing that credit card to help make your monthly payments more manageable is something that if you have high debt, you should consider. Right. So just wanted to highlight the difference between those three products. Now, a lot of people might not know, they hear about them, they're not really sure. An unsecured loan has the lowest interest rate option of these three products. Not that it's the lowest interest rate in the market. Out of these three products, they're generally the lowest interest rate. So if you look at auto loans, those are collateralized debt, and collateralized debt like auto loans and mortgages, meaning that there's an asset to back it up. Those loans are much lower. The interest rates for those are much lower. So these are all unsecured facilities. So there's nothing backing it up. There's no asset behind it. So out of all the unsecured facilities, the unsecured loan is the lowest rate out of these three. The payments are monthly and fixed, so you have more stability. You know exactly what you're paying. And each time you want to get a new unsecured loan, that's a con, you'd have to reapply and do all the documentation over again. Line of credit is something that financial institutions offer, and you only pay if you use it. You have more control over your spending, so less impulse spending than a credit card. You can use it in case of emergencies, and it has a little bit more flexibility than an unsecured loans because you don't have to apply each time. It's just available to you. You use it, you pay it back, and then when you want it again, it's there. So it's like a revolving unsecured loan, but the interest rate is higher. You don't need to apply each time. And then the credit card is the highest interest rate option, but it is the most flexible. You use it when you want. You have the convenience of checking out, just swiping your card wherever you go. It has additional benefits which the line of credit doesn't offer, like cashback and rewards. And for both of them, the line of credit, I think, and the credit card, there's an annual fee usually charged. But if you are responsible with your credit card, it can help to actually build your credit and allow you to be able to qualify for higher interest loans, like for higher valued loans like mortgages and car loans. All right. So what are the benefits of repaying your debt? You must have a plan to repay your debt. If you don't have a plan, if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. So look at all your debt, consolidate it, and the benefits include assisting in improving your credit score. So your credit score is important, and I'll tell you why. I have a whole slide on that next. But if you reduce your debt, rather, you will improve your credit score because you have more ability your capacity to borrow has increased. It will pave the way for you to qualify for bigger purchases like an auto loan or a mortgage, as I said before. It will give you the latitude in your finances to have more financial freedom and to have more control over your income. And it will pave a way for more savings and investing to be able to build your nest egg. All right, so we're going to touch on credit score now. Yeah, that's my next question. Thanks, Jermaine. It preempted my question. Have you ever checked for your free, and I'm make sure I highlight free in yellow, free credit score? Because if you tell me that the reason why I don't check it because it costs money is not, it's free. It does not cost anything. So I see some people say no. And because I'm a data scientist and a researcher, I ran my scientific, it wasn't scientific at all, my Twitter poll, and I asked the same question, and some of you might have answered it and seen it. Have you ever gotten your free credit report from any of the 3 bureaus in Jamaica? I don't even know if you guys know that there are 3 bureaus in Jamaica. You should be ashamed of yourself, Mr. Verway. I'm not even calling you out. All right, I see that covered that you never tried. All right, so it is free and it is easy to do. Well, one of the three is very easy to do. You can pick up your phone right now and go on Credit Info JA. All right, let me go to the next slide first and tell you. I'll go to the next slide and tell you. So, like, this is depressing to me. 65% of Jamaicans have never gotten, of the people on my scientific Twitter poll have never gotten their free credit report. It's free. It's so easy to get. And yeah, you know, two of the viewers. I'll tell you what the viewers are on my next slide. But getting your credit report is it's so important in your journey to financial freedom, because if you don't have your credit report, it can inhibit your ability to get that house and that car when you're ready to go for the mortgage. I don't know about you, but I never had any trust fund to go and buy my house. I had to get a mortgage, and I'm sure many of us will. Very few of us have the inheritance and the free cash to be able to just buy a house off the market. I know if you have a good savings plan, yes, and if you're investing well, bravo. But many of us might have to ask the bank for like a smalls when we're ready to get our house and our car. So your credit report, there is a 99.99 chance that they're going to pull it and check your credit history if you're going to apply for any of those products. So when you reach to that stage of even getting an unsecured loan, definitely they're going to pull it for sure. So if they are going to pull it, you need to know what they're looking at before they know what you're looking at. Because when it's time when you need the money right now, and they pull the report and they say, Miss Johnson, I realized that you have a NCB credit card, a credit card from this company XYZ that you didn't repay. And I'm wondering what's going on here. And you're like, no, but I repaid that 3 years ago and they closed that card. And it's when you're scrambling to get the loan now, you have to go sort it out with bank XYZ because the incorrect thing was on your credit report and you had no idea. And it happens every single day. I'm telling you. Thank you. And look at the comments. And you have the right to file an appeal for your credit report. So I'm not saying that so yeah, I'm telling you that you need to check and see what is in there before the bank does when you need it urgently, when you need the money urgently. It's not when you're ready to apply for a mortgage or a car loan that you should be finding out that there's something in your credit report that's not right. So it's best you check it and you know what's in there before the bank checks it and the bank says something in here is not allowing you to qualify for what you're trying to get, or if you could have qualified as for a higher amount or a better interest rate, you can't anymore, or you can because of the fact that something in your credit score is not correct. And people are saying, oh, Jamaican don't use credit score. I'm telling you. I am telling you, they use it and they will use it. Even the telecoms now and the utility companies, they're all coming on board. So they'll pull your credit report to get a phone or to get a landline. Yeah, so things that showed up right. Camille, look at Camille's comment. Testimony to what I'm preaching here. So it will happen, and you should be aware of what is in there before, especially if you're having debt issues, before you have to access a product that you need urgently. All right, so what are the three credit bureaus? There's Credit Info, jm.creditinfo.com. So if you go on that one right now, you can take your picture. It will ask you to take your picture. You enter some information. It will check to see who you are, and then you'll get your credit report by email in 1 or 2 days. That's all. You can do it on your phone. You don't need to sign up an account or nothing like that. You just go on the app on your phone or go on the website on your phone. It asks you a couple questions. Take your picture. You put in your email address and it will email you. After it verifies that you are who you are, it will email you the credit report. Simple thing. So that one is easier. CRIF, I believe you can send it back. You can send it by email, and you have to get a JP to stamp that form. I don't know if their process has changed. That was the last time I checked. If anybody has any more updated info on that, I'll gladly accept it. But there's a form that you download from their website, crif.com.jm, and then you can email the form with a verified JP or a lawyer to verify that they have witnessed it. And the other one is Credit Information Services, CIS. I've listed them, I think, in order of popularity. I could be wrong, but the three here, Credit Info Services, I think you have to go online and check their websites on how you can get their own. You probably have to go in the office. Not sure of their procedure, to be honest. So yeah, go and get your credit report because it will influence your ability to borrow in the future if you're serious about those big purchases, right? And the information that's on there is retained for generally 7 years. What's on and how did they calculate it? There, I had some info on that. 1 second. So your credit score is calculated by looking at different things. So they'll all calculate them differently. There's no standard way to calculate what it is. But in general, your credit score would comprise of things like your payment history, your debt balances, type of credit that you take out. If you're always taking out an unsecured loan or credit card and stuff like that, they'll look at that. The age of the loan that you have or any of the loans that you have. And it's not just loans. I said loans, but remember I said that the utilities are also joining. So they'll have information on things like that too. And as I said, your payment history is the most important. Like, have you paid, not only have you paid in full, but have you paid in the contractually agreed time that you said you would pay? So if you pay your credit card bill like a little 5 days late, or you pay your unsecured loan maybe a little a week or so late, it has a negative effect. So paying your bills on time, the behavior of paying it on time is something that they capture and they will consider. So the number, and the last thing that they'll also consider is the number of hard inquiries on your credit history. And what does that mean? Hard inquiries, sorry about my camera, I was worried that this would happen. It's giving a little trouble. But hard inquiries means that the number of times a financial institution has pulled your credit report. So if you hop in from bank A to bank B to bank C to bank D, and you're pulling a credit report at each of those banks, if you're doing that every day, you go to a different bank and you're trying to access a loan from that different bank, or even credit union, they will be able to tell, and that affects your score negatively because you're trying to access too much credit in too short of a time by different places, right? It shows patterns. So building your credit score is a part of this journey. And if you're having issues with your credit score, there are ways you can file an appeal with the Bureau, and they're legally obligated to take your issue into consideration and respond to you within a specific time period. So if you find out there's an issue with your credit report, again, guys, it's free. Go and get it once per year, though, free once per calendar year. So if you haven't done another year, just start. Some people say, oh, it's too early. I'll little wait until the year kind of settle in a little bit and get comfortable. Sure, whatever, but do it. If you're thinking about accessing it and you know that there might be something that is questionable, even if you don't know, you're not going to know unless you check it. So just check it. And if you have to pay for another one in the year, pay for it. I don't think it's at more than $2,000. I think it's $1,000 or something like that. So if you really want to check on it again in the year, you can spend $1,000 and get another one. All right. So the last thing I want to touch on with the credit scores is what the most important thing we need to know about it is that yes, you can get it for free. The banks will definitely request it if you're trying to get a loan. Banks and other financial institutions and utility companies, even some renters request your credit score before they will rent to you. So it's getting more and more popular, and more persons are going to start asking for it. Right. Good question, Camille. Yeah, shopping around is, I think I had this conversation with somebody a couple of years ago too. They're like, so I'm shopping around. What does that mean? Shopping around for a loan doesn't mean you apply for it. So they'll only pull your credit report when you're serious and you're ready to apply for it. So what you should do is ask them what their interest rate is. So if you ask them what your interest rate is, I have so many calculators. I have some calculators on my website I can point you to in a second that can help you to figure out what the monthly payment is going to be. So once you figure out, you want to borrow $200,000 and the interest rate is 35%, or the interest rate is 5% at here, 10% there, 18% there. then you want to go with the one with the lowest interest rate. So shopping around should mean that you go there and you apply to every Tom, Dick, and Harry bank to get a loan. That shopping around in the modern age cannot entail that because it will hurt you. And it doesn't make sense because you have to pay application fees every time you apply for a loan, right? So you could pay the fee to apply for a loan and get a 10,000 there and a 20,000 there and a 30,000 there. It can lead to thinking about your behavior patterns negatively. So it's like, okay, why didn't you go to 10 banks and apply for $10,000 at 10 banks? Why didn't you just go to one bank and apply for $100,000? So it kind of, it's look a little bit suspicious. So yeah, just thank you for pasting. That's my website, financialsensibility.com, and there's a calculator section. So when you select the calculator section, it will point you to the different loan calculators. I'll take you through. I can show you in a second too. All right, so getting a credit report is important. Step 2 now of the 5-step journey is to establish, and I'm sorry, I got my camera again, is to establish a budget. And I'm going to take you through my budgeting apps, my budgeting templates rather, in a second. All right, so quiz time. Do you have a budget in place? A for yes, B for no, C for ain't nobody got time for that. So do you have a budget in place? Anybody? No. That's not what I mean. I'm not talking about in your head. You have a document of some type. It could be an app. It could be a piece of paper. It could be an Excel spreadsheet like I have. Oh, I see a C coming into the chart. All right. Okay. All right. A plus B. No, Daryl, that is not math class, this. Not that math to add up. All right, no budget, just vibes. All right, guys. A plus B squared. All right, you guys are not taking this thing seriously. No budget, just vibes. All right. Okay, so budgeting. Budgeting is important in assessing your financial health, and if you have to take stock of where you are so that you know what you can afford to save, you know what you can afford to invest, you know how much of your debt you need to bring down, and you can't do that unless you really do a budget, in my opinion. That's right. I like that, Benasuti. Pay yourself, pay your bills, and move on. So definitely, I stand by that. Pay yourself first. Definitely agree. That's part of one of my philosophies. All right, so in budgeting, first thing I want to think about is like, how do you split your income? How do you split your income? So there are many different recommendations out there, but this one I think is a good one where it says you should have 50% of your income put towards needs in terms of food, shelter, transportation, 30% towards your wants, clothing, fast food, nobody not partying anymore, so you can put that extra piece that you'd have put to party and jump it over to the other tier and put it in the 20% that you should put towards your savings and debts. And this is a minimum. If you guys have some stretch targets like buying a house, you can bump that 20% up to 40%. So you can have a period of time where you're doing 40%, and then when you buy the house, it's a little bit more manageable. So yeah. That's the kind of guideline. But for you to do that first, for you to know what you're spending and what your expenses are, what percentage of your salary is going towards XYZ, you need to do a budget. The first part of doing a budget, though, to me, is to track your expenses. And on my website, financialsensibility.com/calculators, let me see if I can bring it up quickly. Financialsensibility.com/calculators. Over here, there are at the very top, you'll see the daily expense tracker and budget template. There are lots of expense trackers out there, and it does take a little bit of discipline, but if you have a big goal, I suggest that you think about doing it. So there are apps out there that can do this. This is not the only way, but I'm an Excel nerd. I love Excel. So I do everything in Excel. My peeps can tell you. So, okay, I see some people say they use a 70-10-10-10-10 rule. Yes, I didn't have one for tithes for sure. So you have a 10% for tithes, investment, debt, and you live with the other 70. All right, cool. All right, it's taking a little while to come up, but the expense tracker is what I use to track my expenses. So once a week, I'll just sit down and look at what I spent for the week. All right, here it is now. You can download this on my website for free. So once a week, I'll sit down and track all of my expenses in a sheet that looks like this for each month. What I do is I save my receipts and just put them in one place, and then I go through them once a week and look at what was there, and anything that I spent in cash that I didn't get a receipt for necessarily, I'll just kind of, it's not a lot of things that I spend in cash, so I'll just kind of jot it down somewhere so I'll remember. But there are definitely more efficient ways to do it. As I said, there are apps out there, and there are lots of free other templates that you can use that can help you to do it on a more consistent basis. And I'll tell you what those apps are in a second. I have some to recommend. So how I do it, if you download the template, I have different categories, and your categories might be different from mine, but I've categorized all my expenses this way. And these categories are filled in over on here. So it's actually a pick list of those categories on this side. You have the date. I kind of give a description of the specific item and whether or not I paid with a credit card, cash, bank transfer, what the transaction type was. And then I have a column. If you have multiple currencies, your cards in multiple currencies and stuff, you could have more than one. But I just have a column for US, and then I calculate it to Jamaican, so that I have one column of all the Jamaican expenses to have an idea of what exactly I'm spending. And I can look at it by category. I can look at it by type. And then now I'll know exactly where in my expenses I can add a cut, because this would now, I use this now I do an average of this for the year. So I have a dashboard as well. It's empty now because this is a blank template. But when you start putting in the figures, it will tell you the average spent by category for each month. So it'll calculate the average. When you start populating it in January, February, March, it will calculate the average for however many months are populated. So if it's 3 months, it will calculate the average for 3 months, and you'll see the graph, and it will tell you exactly the exact amount on average for each category. So I look at this and I said, okay, well, on average, I'm spending maybe $20,000 on the gym, for example. I'm not, but for example. So I know in my budget, I need to put $20,000 for the gym, because that's on average what I spend. So I'm really scientific about my budgeting. There are other ways you can kind of guess what you're spending, but if you're not really sure, if you're not tracking your expenses this way, then you're not doing your budget justice to really know what is in there, or really know what you're spending money on. So even if you do it for 1 month or 2 months, commit to doing it for 2 months and do an average of those 2 months expenses, and then you would use that now to formulate your budget, which is also a template here. I have my budget template here. So that's just the expense tracker template. So you track your expenses each month, and I kind of designed the budget template to work with the expense tracker. It doesn't, because it's 2 different files, it doesn't link directly if you download it, but it can. Let me show you how. So the budget, so all of the categories that were there, I have it here in the budgeting item. And then because I know on average what I'm spending, I put that figure here. And then this actually reads from this file. It will read exactly from, let me go to the sample. It's reading from this file to pick up what the actual is by expense. So it's reading from the expense tracker file. Oh yeah, I can zoom in, sorry. It's reading from the actual cost. So this is what you projected. And then the actual cost is what you spend for the month when you finish putting in your expenses for the month. And then the difference for each is there. So you can immediately see where you are overspending or underspending, and where you can rejig your finances to move more money into, if you spend overspending on food or entertainment, the luxury items, you can move more of that into the savings. So there's an item here for savings. It's something that you should do. Make sure you pay yourself first. Put your savings down first, before you do anything else, so that you can pay yourself first and ensure that you have that little security. So when you do your budget, it is important to also stick to it. So you cannot assess it on a regular basis. It's hard to say how to stick to a budget, but the only way you'll know if you're sticking to it is if you look back at it. So I know not everybody's like me, but I'm very diligent about doing this. I've been doing it for like, how many years now? 11, 12 years. I've had the same template. I've upgraded it a bit, but I've been using it and tracking my expenses. I should upgrade to an app soon, but not yet. I love my expense tracker. It's very easy for me because I can do my dashboards and kind of look at what's happening in it. So you can download them. It's free, and do your own budget tracking, right? So pay yourself first and ensure that you can map it back to the actual budget template. These are some of the apps that I mentioned before. There's Tip Yourself, Mint, and You Need a Budget. More on-the-go friendly, so you can just get your if you're at a store, you spend something, you just tap in the amount quickly and you move on instead of having to go and type it in one by one like I do. So these are a little bit more everyday, friendly. You can just scan a barcode or scan a receipt rather, and it will give you the information from the receipt. So very helpful. Again, if you can do it, you're at a good place. You're in a good place. This is another simpler template where you just put in your income and expenses, and you track it by, you look at what you budgeted and then what you actually spent. So there are many different budgeting templates out there. You can download them and get familiar with them. This is the one I just showed you, and it will give you a net position at the end of the month, which will show you the difference in what you budgeted minus what you spent. All right, so the next part of the journey is to start saving more. And this is frozen. Okay, the first thing about saving more in your saving strategy is an emergency fund. And what's the benefit of an emergency fund? So an emergency fund, it helps you to create that safety net in case of a job loss, illness, car repair, home repair, or other unexpected expenses. And if you do have an emergency fund, you'll be in a better place, so you don't have to take out those high interest rate loans like credit cards or bank loans with high rates. So remember, if your emergency fund is a credit card that you don't have the funds to repay back, you're paying very high interest, and that can lead you into the debt trap. So to avoid that, it is recommended that you have a certain amount in emergency funds. And what is that amount? It varies. It might be different based on your lifestyle. It's generally 3 to 6 months, but it's recommended that if you don't have any dependents, you have a steady income and you're single, you can have a little bit less, the 3 months. If you have a dual family and you have dependents with variable income, or you work in an industry with high turnover, like the fast food industry, or if you're in the tourism industry right now, it might not be so stable. So 6 months of living expenses if possible. And if you are in a single family income or a family with health issues or if you're older or near to retirement, you might want to think of having 8 to 12 months living expenses. I don't have a problem with using your credit card for emergency expenses, but ensure that you have the capacity to repay. So using the actual card in an emergency might be easier than going to the bank and withdrawing the funds and having to dip into your investment account. So emergency fund should actually be somewhere that you can access it easily. So it can be in a bank account, or it could be a credit card, somewhere you can access it easy in case of an emergency. It shouldn't be somewhere where you have to go apply like it shouldn't be, in your house. So because you're going to have to apply to liquidate, to sell your house, and it's going to take a long time to sell a house. Trust me, it takes a long time to sell a house, or a car. So emergency funds should generally be somewhere that it is easy to access, like a savings account or a credit card. But if you have the money backed up somewhere that you can transfer it to there and ensure that you're not getting yourself into more debt, and you do have your 3 to 6 months or your 6 months put down somewhere, and you can pay off that credit card really quickly, then that's even better. So I don't have a problem with using your credit card in an emergency, but you should still have that little nest egg of 3 to 6 months. So in general, for covering those emergency expenses. This is plus your investments and your savings. So this is just this is something that you're putting on just for an emergency, and then you have your investment and savings. And COVID is the biggest emergency that I think a lot of people came across and were not prepared for in recent times. So just on budgeting, well, that's a good question. So can you invest your emergency fund? As I said, you can put the 6 months in somewhere that you can call upon if you need it for the emergency. So it should be something that you access easily. So if you have a credit card and then you have the 6 months emergency fund in an investment account, and you use a credit card, but you can repay it with the money from your investment account, then that's great. But we're not trying to get in any very high debt with the credit cards by using it and not repaying it. That's what I want to make clear. All right, so just in general, recapping the budgeting part of the exercise is tracking your income. And when you take that assessment and start to track your income, if you realize that when you put your income against your expenses and the expenses are up here and your income is still down here, you have a little bit of a problem. So then you have to start reassessing now. How can you either create more income or reduce your expenses? So the 50-30-20 rule, I see a question asking to explain it, means
All right, guys, sorry about that. We seem to have lost Jillian temporarily. I'm sure she'll be right back. I think she's back.
I am so sorry. I don't know what's going on with my camera. So, right, 50% of your income should go to your needs, 30% your wants, and 20% towards your saving and debt. I see. Okay, Richard said I've been using my credit card as emergency funds. That's great if you have that ability, but pay it off so you don't get into high credit card debt. You should still have your 6 months put down so you don't have that high debt trap to fall into. Tracking your income, as I was saying, so if you do a stock and your expenses are way higher than your income, really start to think about what you can do to increase your income by taking on additional projects or decrease your expenses, and doing that expense tracker can really show you where you can decrease your expenses. You might be able to find some latitude in the food line if you eat patty instead of what's a fancy food restaurant, I don't even know, Burger King every day, I don't know. So there are things that definitely different approaches you can take in looking at your budget, and only you can know where you're willing to sacrifice, and you won't know what you're willing to sacrifice until you see that on paper, right? Find the one that works for you. Agreed. So this is not hard and fast. This is just some guidance about what you can think about, and you do your own research in ensuring that what you're planning to do is right for you, and always speak with a financial advisor too in managing your debt. So tracking your expenses, creating your budget, paying yourself first, I said that earlier, starting your emergency fund and not waiting. Start as soon as you can to ensure that you are on the right track. Budgeting is a critical component towards financial freedom. Sorry. Really sorry about the camera issue. All right, so the next part of the journey is getting serious about investing. And I don't have to say any more about that, right? Because this is Learn, Grow, Invest. You guys know all about investing. But for those who don't know or maybe are coming across this type of thing for the first time. This graph, it came from the Federal Reserve of St. Louis. It shows that if you started investing, if you start at 25 and you put $5,000 a year for 10 years in a row, and you don't make any more investments after you're 34, you actually end up having over 100, and this is in US, $160,000 more than somebody who started 10 years later and invested right up until retirement with the same amount. So it shows you the power of investing, and the power of investing very early, right? So time is on your side. The time value of money, it's something that works for you if you have a longer period of time for your money to grow and for your money to work for you. So when I listen to someone like the finance Twitter and everyone else talking about their biggest, if in any seminar that I've attended and they've asked them what is their biggest regret, I think 9 times out of 10, they'll say that the biggest regret is that they did not start sooner. They didn't start investing sooner because they didn't have, well, most of us didn't have the parents that would tell them about investing and give us the guidance on investing and the stock market and stuff like that. But you guys are on the side of the internet, and you're already a step ahead of the game in the fact that you're here right now. So saving is a key to financial success, but investing will push you right through the door. So if you aim to save at least 10% of your income each month, you can think about how you're going to save it. You can put some in a savings account, but investing in and speaking to a licensed financial advisor about how to invest. And you don't need a lot of money to start. You don't need a lot of money to invest. That's a big misconception out there that you need a whole heap of money to start investing. You don't. Probably you can have like $5,000 and open an investment or brokerage account at one of the brokerage houses. So start thinking about it from now because of the value and the usefulness of compounding and compound interest. So time is your best asset in investing. So start now. That's what I'm saying. Don't wait any longer if you're not investing already. I will tell you what to invest, speak to a licensed financial advisor, but investing will, as I said, push you over the edge and ensure that your future is secure. Pension planning also, some people use investments in replace of pension planning, and I won't say that that's fine, but again, speak to a licensed financial advisor about how you can manage your portfolio with some in investments, some that you have for your pension to help plan for the future, and some in emergency funds. So there really is, I know that sounds like a lot of money, but if you have $100, then $20 out of it needs to go towards that, right? At a minimum. Because again, you saw the first graph that I showed you about, well, not the first graph, the first question I asked you about inflation. If you're putting your money in a savings account and inflation is growing at 5% is what she kept pointing out. Inflation is going at 5%, and the bank is paying you 0.odd% or 0.1 or less than 1, around 1. Then your money, inflation is eating out your money faster than it is growing. So investing is the only way you can beat out inflation and continue to get your money to grow, right? So make that commitment, and it can be pain-free, it can be stress-free. You can put it in do a standing order, deduct a salary deduction if you have a salary. Set it up today. Call HR and say, or call your investment broker or your wherever you want to save, wherever you decide to save your money, ask them for a salary deduction form. They're not going to give you unless you ask for it. Well, generally, they're not going to give you unless you ask for it. So ask them for a salary deduction form and take it, if you have it, to your HR department if you're getting a steady income like that, and tell them that you want the money to come out of your salary and go there every month. You don't even want to see it. You don't want to think about it. You don't have to do a wire transfer or bank transfer. Just let it come out and you don't even see it. It's gone before you even know it's there, and it is building your future, right? Automate it. You can do standing order or salary deduction to automate your payments. And the last part, yes, what kind of question is that? You never see my graph, let me go back. So look at this. 25. The person only invests for 10 years, This person invests for 10 years. And this person invests for 30 years. So this person paid much more incrementally. So many more payments of $5,000. And this person just let their investments at age 35 grow. They never put any more in it. They just let it grow, right? And they had more money than the person who saved for 30 years. So starting earlier, I hope this graph is powerful to tell you that the earlier they start, the better. All right, and last but not least is boosting your financial knowledge. Yeah, good point. At 25, you should have way more disposable income. You don't have the house yet. You don't have typically, you don't have the family. You don't have the 2 children to feed. So you have a little bit more at your disposal when you're 25. And there's no party. I don't see anybody going to no dream weekend or nothing like that. So all of that money that you'd spend flossing, put it in an investment or talk to your advisor about investing it. So yeah, boosting your financial knowledge. Of course, we're here at Learn, Grow, and Invest, and that's my website, financialsensibility.com. But there are lots of ways you can learn about our local financial markets and investing locally. In addition to books you can buy about investing in general. So locally, the JSE, Jamaica Stock Exchange, just started their podcast. I would give it a listen. I haven't yet, but give it a listen if you're not sure about investing or where to start. And then, of course, there's the Earnings Season podcast and Every Mickle by Randy Rowe and Danai. They really break down investing for you. They were on the last episode of this show, Learn, Grow, and Invest. Really great, brilliant guys. So I've listened to, I think, every episode. Of course, Simon is next. I didn't forget Simon, don't worry. Then there's Kalila. Kalila talks a lot about investing, and she really does give you the scoop on what's going on in the market. She has more than one show. It's 3 she has: Money Mondays, Money Moves, and Taking Stock. So all of them are really good, and you learn exactly what's going on in the market. And of course, my dear friend Simon, Stocks on the Rocks, they are top-notch in their delivery of breaking down stocks for the everyday person. So these are locally where you can get the knowledge and the know-how on finances and learning about companies and how they're not giving you financial advice, but they're helping you with the research. Because a big part about all of this, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you the tools that you can think about to help you to make a decision for yourself. So, you go to an advisor, you can download and, as I said, calculate the monthly payments on a loan for yourself instead of going to each financial institution and applying just to see what you're going to get. You can do that calculation yourself if you know the interest rate and you have a reasonable estimate of what you can qualify for. As I said, they're probably not going to give you in excess of 60%, 50-60% of your income being in debt. So you should, in general, be able to qualify for the rest. There are definitely different circumstances for different persons, but that's a calculation. You can estimate yourself. And of course, there are lots of financial books out there. There is The Richest Man in Babylon, The Intelligent Investor. I know you investment gurus will have the best one of those and can recommend them. If you have any to recommend, sure, you can drop it in the chat, the books for persons to read. But not everybody will have time to read and it might not be that invested, but if you're driving somewhere or you're cooking and you just want to hear something, just learn something, you can put on the podcast. You can just go on YouTube and find an episode of Taking Stock and just listen to it. That's what I do when I'm doing a house chore or something like that. I just find an episode and listen to it, and even that little time I learn so much. So you never stop learning. Everyone here, I'm sure everyone who is interested in investing, they continuously try and learn more about the companies that they are investing in, and they want to understand more about what's going on in the market that might affect their investments. So the knowledge of the investor is always a good one. If you can't bother, speak to a licensed advisor, and they can point you to the way of a mutual fund or unit trust where you don't even have to think about the stocks. They'll guide you based on your risk appetite. So I can't tell you what to do, but they will understand when they assess what you are comfortable with. They'll make recommendations for you on what to invest in. So yeah, that's it in general. Are there any, did I go over the time? I'm so sorry. But if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them if you have any. Yeah, so right, you can read the newspaper, watch the business news, and see what's happening. And they have some really great, Randy has a really good stock tracker template on everymickle.com. I use it. I'm gonna show you what I was talking about with my loan calculator. It says car loan calculator, but it works for any loan really. It's on my website. If you have any questions, you can ask it. This one is an upgrade. I'm trying to zoom in, but it's very simple. If you know the interest rate, you can put it here. You know how much you want to borrow, put it here. You know how many years, yikes, the loan is gonna, you want to repay the loan. And they might not give you the years that you want, but on average, they'll tell you the general terms of their loan. I don't know why this thing is so yucky. Pressing the wrong controls. All right, here we go now. No, it's too small. Cowan. All right. So right, if you know the amount that you want to borrow, some persons will have financing requirements, so you can only borrow 95% of the value of the car or the house or any asset that you're trying to use as collateral. So they'll only give you you'll have to pay 5% down by yourself. So the bank will tell you those terms. Once you have that information and you know their interest rate, you know how many years it's going to take to repay, it will give you the monthly amount. That is not working now. Sorry, let me see. Yeah, sorry, it will give you the amount that you have to pay each month based on the reducing balance methodology, which most lenders use. There are some payday lenders that don't use reducing balance method. I would say avoid them. If you're going to get a payday loan, be very mindful about what type of method they're using to calculate the interest. All right, so yeah, my website is Financial Sensibility. It's right here too, financialsensibility.com. And you can download all of these calculators for free. All right, so what about taxes and filing returns? This seems quite popular in the US, but not sure if the average person in Jamaica can do it. I'm guessing you're talking about persons with a company or self-employed persons, Daryl. It is very hard. I'll agree with that statement. And it's supposed to be easy. I even made a tweet about it the other day. How can I find out how to pay my taxes? Because I also operate a business in addition to my day-to-day job. And I forgot to mention that. So, my camera is off. I just realized. So yeah, it's very hard and there's not much guidance. But Kalila's show, taking her show her videos that she's produced has given. There's a few of them on how to pay your taxes. So I would recommend trying to watch that one. But in general, yeah, I think there is a space for somebody to really break down the taxes that we have and how to pay them for a business. But if you're salary, the employer pays you salary and is on your behalf, you can just verify that those taxes are correct by going on. I have a net pay calculator on my website as well that you can download. And you can put in your pay and it should tell you how much taxes you're supposed to pay or what you pay in each of the taxes for a regular salaried person. If you do have a small business though, there is a not GCT, but if you have a payroll and you need to know what payroll taxes to pay as a small business, MCS has a very good product called the BizPay that will do all of that calculation for you, and it's not expensive. So I would recommend that. I see a credit card payment calculator. Each bank when you say credit card payment calculator, so your credit card payment is variable, so it's going to be a little difficult to calculate, but each bank will have a different minimum monthly payment. Their way of calculating the minimum monthly payment is not going to be consistent. So if let me know what you mean by credit card payment calculator. Are you hearing me? I'm not sure. Okay. Looks like I'm frozen.
We're hearing about your video is frozen.
Oh, weird. Sorry about that. I've heard that we can use investments as assets for loans. Has anyone done it before, and how does that work in terms of a lower interest rate? Not sure about that at all.
I can speak on it little. It's there are a couple of ways that I've seen it done.
Mm-hmm.
There's a margin loan where you
Yeah.
get a percentage of your stock portfolio as a loan.
Mm-hmm.
Interest rate is calculated monthly. So I say take that with caution. And I've seen right around the time of COVID that some banks are offering the ability to use your portfolio as collateral for a loan. So depending on your institution, ask them if they have it. But I've seen a few of them offering.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about the camera. I mean, I'm sorry about that, guys. But yeah, Chike says a credit card repayment calculator. I could do one if you assume that the person is not going to spend any more on their credit card. But I have to think through that a little bit more. I mean, I did it for the sake of that example that I shared with you, that it would take 8.5 years to repay the same amount. But I could do it in the comparing it to an unsecured loan to show how.
I think the key thing with the credit card to understand is that you want to get as much paid off it, as much paid on it as much as possible each month, because really, I see where it's calculated each month. So the minimum payment this month will be X. If you miss that payment, more interest is added on, more late fees.
Calculated, yeah.
Next month is actually a little higher. So I've seen where banks also are unwilling to freeze that debt until it's really bad.
Right.
So it's not likely that they'll freeze it for you. If you ask them early enough, you can get a debt consolidation loan, or sometimes you can pool multiple debts, as Jillian was saying before, and just kind of make a smaller payment. So it really just depends, because you're really switching that higher interest rate for a lower one, but just be sure that you set the payments at a comfortable mark that you can actually make that payment. Because in some cases you may pay more long term, but the lower payments allow you to just pay it off more consistently while saving on the higher interest debt, if that makes sense.
I agree. Just to give you some more breathing space on a monthly basis. So you might another thing that I wanted to say is that negotiating with your existing interest rate is not something that people do a lot, but it is something that you can do if you know that you're not going to be able to meet your debt obligations and you're in a bind. Talk instead of just shutting them out and running away and leaving the debt. If you talk to your financial institution, they will more than likely be willing to work with you to be able to renegotiate that debt and to make those payments more manageable. Whether or not it's extending the period of time. When COVID hit, a lot of banks offered moratoriums, which gave persons a little breathing room to be able to just gather themselves and figure out a plan for the future. So don't run away from your debt, embrace it, and figure out how to kick its butt and get it out of the way. You have it.
Jillian, you want to take this one? I have some thoughts, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'd also recommend using partners at regular commitment. Yeah, and that's one way. It's a way of building discipline to just put in your money. It's like it's a savings mechanism as well. You get a lump sum, but what you do with that lump sum is important too. And there are banks that have products that mimic partner plans as well. So you put the money in there and then you get your draw at the end of the period. So since that's a way of saving that people are used to. Yeah,
I would just say with a partner, if it's the one outside the bank, careful, that is an unsecured form of saving, right? I've had partners where the person maybe falls ill or something happens, and then so I would say be very careful. And some of them are known to the traditional one. They'll keep one hand or one payment, so that is not necessarily. I would use an investment medium that is cash based so that you can liquidate that quickly. It may be better, so you can actually invest the same amount each month if you want, similar to a partner, or every week, similar to a partner. So a unit trust, for example, is something that you could do each week, or equity fund. As Jillian said, they have partners, well, similar products in banks as well that may offer a certain incentive in terms of interest if you stick to that model over the same period. You wanna try and switch cameras?
Yeah, I'm trying to see. All right, here we go. Great. Sorry about that. I switched computers, so we're better. We're not going to have that issue anymore.
Okay.
All right. So, do all institutions who give credit cards charge interest on the total amount spent? As far as I know, yes.
Yeah, it's interest on the balance, so it's whatever you spent. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I know. And JN does it, Neil?
Yeah, I think yeah, I've seen JN. I think JMMB, maybe VM as well. I think we'll try and find out and confirm, but I know I've heard it from JN definitely as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? We are about to wrap up. I think we can wrap up in a few minutes. I wanted to ask you, Jillian, there are persons who I know who want to invest, but they're just kind of burdened with debt. Is it recommended that you invest before you clear off your debt, or what's your take on that?
All right. Tough one. I know if you're burdened with debt, there's not very much room to do more. So I would say, in the order that I kind of gave the roadmap, is to tackle the debt first, to ensure that you do have that space, because you don't want to invest and you have debt, and then how you going to eat after that. Yeah. So ensure that you have the room to spend on your needs, your shelter, your food, your clothes, and not too much fancy clothes either. And then the only way you can do that though is if you tackle having that disposable income. So if you're at the 60% and you're maxed out and it's mostly high interest debt, speak to a bank or another financial institution about getting that interest to a lower, more manageable payment, so you have more breathing room. If all of your debt, so generally banks won't lend this much to you, but say if you're paying 70% of your income in a mortgage or 80% in a mortgage, they generally won't lend you that much if you in terms of your income. But if for instance, if you lost your job and you have to get a lower income job or something like that to make ends meet, and now you're still paying that very expensive debt, think about different ways of tackling the situation. So you have a mortgage, that means you have a house. Can you rent out a room? What can you do to get in some more income to be able to afford to cover that cost? I know that thought is scary to people, but there are ways that you can do it. Ask them for them credit report first to see that they're not to see if they're a good enough person that you would rent out your place, so that you know that income is kind of more secure. So yeah, there are ways depending on the individual situation. There are loans officers that are willing to help you, to guide you through their debt consolidation loans that are offered. That's the name of the product, debt consolidation loan. So you can go and apply for one of those and see if you can get some relief there.
Yeah, so I agree with that approach, because for me, when I started investing a few years back, I had a lot of debt, but I wanted to invest. So I actually tried to juggle both. So I started with a budget. I actually started to invest heavily and just tried to pay down that debt also as fast as I can. So I tried to do both, but I understood from the budget where my cash outflows were, the areas that I was spending too much money on. And so I was able to save some money, invest aggressively, and then pay off that debt sooner than I had planned to. So that's what I did. That's how it worked for me. Let me try and get some of these questions here. What would you recommend in terms of fixing your credit report? So let's say the credit report shows something that's unfavorable. What would you recommend they do?
Sure. I actually had that here. Hold on, let me go back to it. But yeah, there are ways. The first thing is if you get your free report and you realize something is wrong on it, you should alert. There's usually a dispute form. You should alert the bureau first and let them know that you're gonna dispute this whatever the situation is. So you send it back to the bureau that has the report. There are 3 bureaus. And then you send it back to them and let them know what exactly that you're disputing. The bureau then is charged with going back to that financial institution or wherever the dispute arose from and doing what they can to ensure that the dispute is settled. So if it is that you're disputing, the institution has to respond to them within a specific period of time as well. So they will remove it from, if there's an issue and they agree that it is in dispute and it is their error, they will remove it from your credit score or credit report rather and amend it. But it might take a little bit of back and forth and proving, if you have proof that you paid it off, that would help, and they might ask for that and things like that. So it is for the bureau to go back to the financial institution and clarify what has been incorrectly reported. So accessing the free report is the first step in ensuring your disputes are handled. Paying your bills on time. So if you're in a bind now, if the only way you need to continue a pattern of prompt on-time repayments to help build back your credit profile. So if you have been consistently delinquent or late in your payments, you're at a point where you can now restructure and you can manage one single monthly payment. You've paid off your other debts and the other credit card debts, etc. Now you're managing a single low payment and you're paying it out of a salary deduction or you're paying it at a standing order, so you're paying it on time. That will begin to put forward a new profile of you. And it might take a little while. It's not going to happen overnight, but as you consistently show that your credit behavior is changing, so you're paying your bills on time and you're not consistently delinquent, and that will help to boost back your credit profile. Paying off those high interest debts first, like the credit card debt, and keeping your credit card balances low if you can. So when you pay it off, when you spend on your credit card, you pay it off in full, so you don't have a high outstanding balance. So the high outstanding credit card balance for a consistent time is not a good sign anywhere. So pay it off in full or keep the balance as low as you can, and pay down any if you have loans and you're paying them down, as Jermaine was saying, as he found a way to make pay it down heavily. So if you have loans and you're paying them down heavily, and you have a lump sum payment that you're putting towards it, showing that you're repaying that loan faster than you could, that could also help in improving your credit. So it really is about changing your behavior. And there are other ways, if you can Google and find other ways that people say that you can fix your credit score. But it really is, if there's something wrong on it, you can fix it by highlighting it to the credit bureau. But if it is really your behavior that was wrong, or if you even if you guaranteed a loan for somebody who they did not repay it, it affects your credit score. And a lot of people don't know that. If you guarantee a student loan for somebody, or you guarantee another loan, the person says, just sign the paper so I can get the loan, I'll make the repayment. And you never hear from them again, or they never make a payment, and you're the one that is on the line, that badly affects your credit score. So be very careful when you're guaranteeing a loan for somebody, because you never know how it's going to manifest or how that situation will play out. I'd even go as far as to say probably don't do it at all. If you can avoid it.
If possible. Yeah, it's a big part of our culture. Actually, I can't tell a person who has not done it. Like, I know so many persons who have been, either they know someone or they've maybe done it at some point. I recommend that you don't do it, especially now, because it's just too risky. I don't recommend it at all. Also to note, usually when you clear the debts on your credit, the debts that you have, they, I think, look at you being debt free for a couple of months first. So let's say that you clear all your loans now, you wouldn't be able to get a loan right away, especially if those were bad debts. So you
Right.
want to give that some time as well. So if you want to buy a house or buy a car and you go in, you had some issues to sort out, I would say give it at least 3 to 6 months. Show that you're paying your bills on time, as Jillian said. Show that you're kind of managing that debt to that debt service ratio, and then you can now say, okay, I've had the last 4 to 6 months going well. I'm ready now to take this loan. And again, speaking from personal experience there. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's take another question.
Daryl, I'm not sure about that one. Oh, let's ask David. Answer David first. What I do?
What do I invest in myself first?
Then
David, I'd ask you to rephrase that question, please.
yeah.
Are conservative bond income funds worth it? I would say it depends on what your goals are and the type of investor you are. If you want low risk, if you don't like seeing your account in red, but you don't want to take a lot of risk, maybe those will work. I've heard stories that unless you have millions, bonds don't work. I have this argument with Chike all the time. I'm not going to invest in a bond. Personally, it depends on your preference really. But typically you'll have the bond giving you what the interest rate will be, the frequency of payment, things like that. We've heard stories recently of some bonds being paid early and then some bonds not being paid at all. So it's there's no risk-free investment. It's just typically a lower risk. You agree with that, Jillian?
I don't have much to add at all. I don't have much to add.
Okay. All right. Let me see if there's another one. Well, yes, Emil. Typically, you want to see just a history of the person's. So the last 3 payslips will typically give you an idea as to what payments are coming out. I can't tell you how I know this, but sometimes you'll find persons, as Gillian was alluding to, taking out loans all over the place. So sometimes you'll see a loan from NCB on month 1, a loan from NCB and Scotia on month 2. So it kind of shows you how the person consistently manages their income in terms of the deductions that are there. And typically they'll ask you for your list of expenses, if anybody's dependent on you for income, things like that, or any additional forms of income. You can possibly also list your assets, maybe other income streams.
Yeah, and they asked for the last 3 to just look at the consistency of the income as well. So if you might have gotten a raise recently, or you might have gotten your income might have lowered. So just to estimate with reasonableness the stability of the income that you have declared that you get. So yeah. So they look at it for both income and expenses.
Okay.
Because even though the bureaus are capturing a lot of the debts that you might have, they're not capturing all of them. So your payslip is likely to also capture some that the bureau is not capturing.
I find that if you have variable income, they may ask you for bank statements and not payslips.
Right.
So
yeah, definitely.
As well. All right, we're being asked what we think of DTL.
No comment from me.
I would say watch the video we did reviewing the prospectus and make an informed decision. That's what I'll say personally.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah, it does have to do with job security. So you could say you've worked at it does too. That there are many different things that are looked at. But yeah, if you say that you've worked at this company for 3 months or for 5 years and you can only produce one payslip from them, that also
Yes, actually I found that was the case. So when I just started a new job, had a new role, they told me that I needed to be in the job for at least 3 to 6 months. Yeah, so they look for that as well.
Yeah. Oh, David.
I don't believe in job security actually. I don't think that's a thing.
Right.
which is why the emergency fund is important.
Agreed. I was just gonna say that as well. Yeah. So job security is a big part of your ability to repay a loan. But if there are other income sources that you have, if you're getting enough in interest income from your investments or something like that, then you can.
Yeah, we see person saying they're getting their salary from investing. So
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. So there are ways that you can diversify and be able to
yeah,
come.
yeah. All right, so we have one last question, I think. Is a capital growth fund similar to investing in a stock?
They invest in a pool of stocks and other assets, so not just stocks. As what my knowledge, what I know about them, they invest in different asset classes.
Yeah, so the fund should tell you what it's invested in. So depending on the firm, just ask them to show you what that fund will be invested in, because you want to match that again against your preferences. Because if you don't believe in real estate investing and the fund is investing in real estate, it's not going to match what you're looking for. So please bear that in mind. David has a question for you, Jillian.
How do they judge risk when giving out credit card and limits? I mean, every institution is different. Like, I can't tell you what they use to judge your risk, but I can tell you it's more than likely a function of your income.
Yeah.
The limit is a function of your income. Your risk is a function of multiple things, but your limit probably is related.
Yeah. So when I applied for a credit card, won't name the institution, they said they're looking at my DSR and they're looking at my income. So the limit was based on what my income was. You're not going to get a limit higher than your income. For some, it will be the gross or the net, but it's typically based on what you're repaying. Because if I make 100,000 and I'm repaying 90, they're not going to give me 100,000 credit cards. Some banks would, but not everyone would. They may give you a limit like 30,000 or 40,000 because you want to be able to manage repaying that credit card each month. So
yeah,
that's how I've seen it work.
Exactly. Yeah, so it is definitely a function of the your income. So there are, in terms of assessing your risk, though, I mentioned some of the things that were included in your credit bureau, in the credit bureau, what is contained in there in your report, and those are what they would use to assess your risk. If you if they're, and many banks are not just going to go by your credit score alone. They're definitely not. We're not there yet as a country. Credit reporting is fairly new. With the first started sharing information in 2013. So you thanks, David. So you can that's what I mentioned before in terms of your payment history and being able to the hard hits on your the hits on your credit score. Those are the things that they use to assess your risk. Some of the things, but there are many things different institutions use to assess your risk.
Yeah. It's I would just ask a direct question: what are you looking for? If you apply and they turn you down, ask them why. What it is that would have been different to make them give you that card, and you'll find out what their priorities are. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So Emil is asking what advice you have for persons earning in USD and want to invest in JMD, how you can mitigate the currency challenges.
That one, that's an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, there's no straightforward answer to that. I can't predict what's going to happen with either. So I would say, look at what the market is doing. Look at how the trends have been going in terms of the increase in the US dollar. And like any investment strategy, diversify and assess the risk and speak to someone who's licensed to guide you on it.
Yeah. And I would just add to that depending on how you view it, it can be a form of diversification. So, for example, if you're earning in USD though, and you want to invest in the local market, there are some stocks that have USD denomination. So you may want, a lot of persons don't know about the USD side of the market. So if the stocks that you're interested in are listed on the USD side, then you may be able to invest in USD. David Rose has actually spoken about that on one of our episodes already. And there are also forms of savings and investing that are US based. So I've seen brokerages have, US based funds that, so you don't have to worry about that exchange rate pulling down the value of that money. There are some expenses. Well, if you're earning in USD and living in Jamaica, you may want to just factor in the JMD that you'll need to just pay for regular expenses. But yeah, I mean, there's no way to know. Today it's 149, next week it may be 130, the week after it may be 170. Nobody knows. So you want to just manage that risk based on what you think is best and what you've seen. That's what I'd say. Yeah. Well, if there are no more questions, Jillian, thank you so much. This was an information-packed episode. We'll have one more from David. All right, let's take that one. This is the final question now, guys.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but pay yourself first and make it automatic. So his question is, how would you recommend persons ensure they save money without making mistakes and spending it carelessly? Paying yourself first, automate it. So salary deduction, stand in order, put the money in and make sure it comes out and goes where you need it to go, that you can't touch it. If it's an investment, send it to your broker or wherever you have it, so that you can automate that process and ensure that a certain percentage of what you're earning always goes into a savings or investment account to help with your discipline. Before you even see it, it's gone.
I agree. So you definitely want to watch your debt and your leakages of cash. There are lots of things that we pay for that may be automated that we don't realize, and sometimes, well, at least for me, I don't like to keep cash because once I withdraw money, it's done. So I pay for everything by card because at least that way it's less likely to be wasted. So you want to watch that.
And well, so Dave Ramsey has a theory. My sister is a very strong believer in Dave Ramsey and his principles.
Baby steps.
A lot of people don't like it, but she's a strong proponent. And he actually advocates for not having a credit card and paying for everything in cash. I don't subscribe to that. That's not my way of doing it. I'm more like you, Jermaine. But he says if you're really, really, really serious about it, the act of taking the money out of your purse or your wallet and handing it over is like, it's so tangible, it's there, you see it. So you're less likely to spend more if you're paying in cash. If you have the card and you swipe it, it's easier to spend. So if you are disciplined, yes, cards, I would consider myself disciplined. So I'm good with the cards. But for her, she don't business about her money, she just spend. She kind of adopted his principle for a while. Like he has this thing where you have envelopes for each amount. So you see the categories I had in my budgeting template, you have an envelope for each category and you put the cash for the month in each envelope. So when you go into the supermarket, take up the supermarket envelope and you carry it to the supermarket with you, and you can only spend what is in that envelope. You don't carry any more money with you. The only money you have is supermarket money. So if you're going to the grocery, the fast food store, you only have your fast food envelope with you. So you can only take money, and when it's finished, it's finished. That's it. You can't go back in and you can't put more money in there. So that's one kind of approach. If you're really disciplined and you're really thinking about how you can put yourself in a strict way to get rid of the debt, think about that. But if you have the control, use the card. And you don't take out all of your money and put it in one place.
Yeah, I would actually take it a little bit further and say do a hybrid of that. So if you have bills that you can automate, just do that. And then for everything else, you can use cash. So what we try to do is I encourage my wife to use a list. So we're doing our shopping. We use a list. We get a price for that list from the supermarket. We have an idea as to what we will spend. And then we say, okay, there's a ceiling for food. Because I mean, sometimes you have a taste for certain things. And so it's hard to plan for food too far ahead. But I would say just automate where you can. The reason why I don't do the cash in envelopes is because one, I don't like the risk of keeping so much cash.
Yeah.
As you know, if somebody comes to me to ask me for some money and I have the cash inside, I'm gonna pinch that cash because it's hard for me to tell somebody I don't have the money when the money's in the next room. So that's what I find. So if there's no cash and I say I don't have any, I'm not lying. That's how I do it.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Okay.
That's a question for another video. All right, guys, I'll ask you if there's anything that we miss here, please post it in the comments. Would love to release Jillian to go to her little boys. Jillian, so much. If there are any questions that you have for her, post it in the comments below. Follow her on Twitter, on Instagram. Please check out her website. Download all the templates while they are free. You never know if she may decide to charge you
Yeah,
a
the
premium.
new one is coming. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yes, and so please, guys, if you have not done so yet, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Share this video with everyone you know who is struggling to manage their money and need to get a better handle on their finances. Thank you, guys. David, I'm taking up on that offer. So we are going to have a discussion in a few weeks, thanks to David. Okay, we're not missing anything else. All right, guys, so we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.